Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. And I see some of my councilmates. Kenneth Rothwell, he's in the back, our newest council, and then we see Kathleen Kent is also here joining us. And we want to thank you, and it's great to see this kind of turnout. This is a very, very critical part of our legislation that we're going to eventually produce. The comprehensive plan is what's going to guide us. It's going to guide us from the point that at the time it gets adopted for 20 years. And it's critical that we get your input, we understand how you feel, and we also want to hear your ideas. You can't do research, and this is a research project actually, you can't do research with just one goal in mind and just talk to certain people or go into just one community. You need the entire and the full community to be part of this. And I want to, I'm going to be watching this meeting. It's going to be available on Channel 22. So those of you who cannot see it or may have to leave early or have something to do or couldn't understand part of it, you'll be able to review it. And this is a positive thing. And again, this is a very critical. This is done for you, by you. Okay? You are it. If your voice counts, this is the beginning of this process. It's going to be a fully inclusive process, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with. And again, a very critical component of our town, and this is the way it should be done. And I'm very happy with the way it's been going. And this is again just the beginning. And good luck. And I hope to see any of you again. There'll be how many more? John?
3 more after this.
There'll be 3, and you can also go to them, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Everyone is welcome. Just because you came to this one, you're not excluded. This is an inclusive process, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Yvette, and good evening, everybody. I think most of you know who I am. I'm Jeff Murphy. My official title is the Building and Planning Administrator. I oversee the functions of the Building and Planning Department. I oversee the day-to-day functions of the Planning Department. And this is a really exciting period for me professionally because comprehensive plans are supposed to be completed about every 10 years, but based on my personal and professional experience, it usually takes about 20 years. So there are a lot of planners out there that don't have this opportunity because their careers don't span that 20-year period. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me, and I'm very excited about it. But more than being exciting for me professionally, this is really an important exercise because this is your home. This is your community. And your showing up this evening shows me that you are involved with your community. As Yvette mentioned, this is the first of 4 community meetings. This is just the first round of meetings. This is no by means the first and last of the meetings. This evening we're going to be talking about Akabog, Northville, Laurel, Jamesport, and South Jamesport. Then the next round of meetings will begin in the same room, starting at 6 p.m. on Monday, September 27th, and that will include a presentation on Wading River and Manorville. Then on Tuesday, September 28th, we're going to be talking about Calverton and Beatty Hollow, and then followed by Wednesday, September 29th, will be Riverhead and the downtown area. These meetings are both held live, as you are here this evening, but also via Zoom. We have Chip over on the Zoom meeting. Leave your hand, Chip, so that you can also participate via Zoom. If you're not able to come in person, you can watch it on and participate via Zoom. It's also being recorded. Larry Levy is front and center. This evening is being taped and can be watched again. And all your comments are going to be recorded based upon what you say this evening, and also by Larry. Also, we have a brand new website. If you haven't taken a look at it, it's really cool. I love it. It's an interactive website, and Dawn Thomas was kind of my mentor because she used a large part of what we have up there, the interactive map. They did it for the downtown area. We applied it town-wide, and it's a really cool function. You click on the map, you can post comments about it, you can make suggestions, recommendations, and all those comments and recommendations are recorded. Also on the new website is the community survey. If you haven't taken the survey, please do so. It's not long. I think it's about 25 questions. thereabout. If you have any questions about how to access it or use it, come see one of the consultants this evening. They can guide you, show you how to get to it. If you're still cautious about using the computer and internet, we do have hard copies of it so that you can fill it out and then either drop it off to my office or you can mail it to me. And we'll make sure that those comments are included with the survey. And the survey is going to open through November 1st. We start seeing a large number of people commenting late in the process. We may opt out to extend the comment period for the survey. The website's staying up throughout the whole process, however, though. You can also email your comments. If you don't feel like you want to share your comments this evening, but you have comments that you want to share, there's an email contact on the website that you can post your comments as well. Lastly, one of the tasks of the consultant was to correct our zoning maps. And if you see the zoning maps off to my right, your left, those are the new corrected zoning maps. We have not put on anything on these maps that has not been adopted by the town board already. The zoning maps that you see on our website are about at least 3-4 years old, and they're not up to date. These maps are now up to date. They are posted on the website. So if you have any questions about the zoning in the town, please look at those. We're still trying to figure out how to legally adopt those because they've already been adopted legally by resolution and local law by the town board, but now we have a map change that reflects it. I'm going to turn over the microphone now to Bob White. He is the vice president of the consulting firm AKRF, Alley King, Rosing and Fleming. This evening, he's going to give a brief presentation. Bob, how come we couldn't get the president?
The president was busy.
The president's busy this evening. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob White now. Following Bob, we're going to have a series of slides with PowerPoint presentation. Lorianne, those are going to be posted on the website, correct? Yes. Those will be posted on the website. So if you miss anything or want to make copies of anything, those will be on the website as well. And we're also going to post the PowerPoints on the upcoming meetings as well as we get closer to those dates. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Bob.
Thank you, Jeff. Just give me one moment while I take this off. That's one of the benefits of speaking is you can take the mask off. It feels so much better. Yes.
Let us know when you want the lights down.
Yeah, I guess we could turn the lights down. Can everyone good? Everyone can see? Thank you. I want to thank the town of Riverhead. We're really excited to be doing this. It's sort of like, for a planner, and I've been planning in New Jersey and New York City and Long Island for 40 years, doing a master plan for a town, particularly the town of Riverhead, with hamlets and downtown and coastlines and Peconic Estuary. It's really a thrill, and it's got all the elements of an exciting time for us as planners. And I want to thank you all for coming. We have a full house here. This is great. This being our first kickoff meeting. I'm just going to give you that introduction on the team in a moment, and I'm just going to walk you through quickly, if you have the handouts, what the presentation is about, so you know what to look for. We're going to talk a little bit about the purpose and need of a master plan and why a town or the town of Riverhead, the benefits of doing a master plan for a town. Very important to that is the public participation process. So we're going to outline for you how that process, how you can participate, and the ways in which you can participate. We're going to talk a little bit about the planning areas that we've established, which are going to help us, and you have some graphics here that show that, to help us organize our discussions and write-ups as they go through the master plan and ultimately the environmental impact statement process. Give you a little project overview of what the project intention is, how we're going to develop those issues and opportunities and town-wide sort of statement of needs. Also, how we're going to organize and incorporate your feedback and input to this process, which is essential to any master plan. Next slide. Oh, I guess sorry. Okay. Oh, sorry, I forgot to advance that. So this is our team. Everyone you see on the slide is at the table over here, or standing. So that is me, Robert White. I'm EICP. I've been, like I said, planning for 4 decades. Steve is in the back. Steve is our outreach coordinator, and he's been doing this as long as I have. Lorianne is our project manager. She'll wave by. She's going to be leading the presentation. She'll be up next, tell you what the master plan process is about, and give you an overview of what our objectives are and how you can help us. And James will be assisting Lorianne, and James is right there. And we are assisted in this project by L.K. McLean, who will be working on infrastructure and also a critical element, transportation comprising roadways and rail and bus and transit. And Ray is here, Ray Tobias, and also Vincent Ferrara. So we thank them for coming and appreciate their assistance with us on this project. So with that introduction, I'd like to turn it over to Lorianne, who's going to talk to you a little bit, walk you through what the comprehensive planning process is about.
Thank you, Bob. Okay. So what is a comprehensive plan? This is the definition from the New York State Department of State. It's the culmination of a planning process that establishes the official land use policy of a community and guides its future decision making. For the purpose and need for the update, why are we here tonight? The comprehensive plan is a very important planning tool. It's a long-range plan, so it will guide decision-making for the next 10 to 20 years. We'll also be incorporating emerging and contemporary planning issues that were not addressed or were not around when the comprehensive plan was last updated in 2003. Also, any zoning has to be in conformance with an adopted comprehensive plan. This is our program for public input. As Jeff spoke to you about, this is the first of a series of Hamlet and community meetings that we'll be hosting this month. We also have our project website up at Town of Riverhead comprehensiveplanupdate.com, and that's where you can access our survey. Please go and fill that out for us. As Jeff mentioned, we also have hard copies here if you're not able to access a computer. You can also access our interactive map there, where you can leave us place-based comments and markers to indicate assets and other issues and opportunities throughout the town. We'll also be hosting topic-oriented meetings and meetings on the preferred alternative and the environmental review process next year, and we've been meeting with the advisory committee. This is our draft hamlet map. We've delineated the town into its 11 hamlets. We may adjust the boundaries as we go through the planning process and obtain community feedback. This is just a way to organize data so that we can begin to identify hamlet-specific issues and opportunities. We reviewed a number of sources to arrive at these boundaries, including postal addresses, the Long Island Index, real estate, websites, land uses, information from the town's 2003 comprehensive plan, and ultimately these planning areas generally correlate with census boundaries, which we do rely on a lot for a lot of our analyses. So to give you an overview of this project, this will be a full update of the 2003 plan with new goals and recommendations. As I mentioned, we will incorporate emerging and contemporary planning issues. We have an extensive public participation program, and we will be focusing on some key areas. We have, including economics. We have an economic and market trends analysis underway. We'll also be completing transportation studies and focusing on environmental studies as well. This is a snapshot of the work that we've completed to date or is underway. So we kicked off the project last January 2020 with an extensive background review process, working closely with the planning director to develop the public outreach plan and stay abreast of the latest news topics. We then met with the town and planning boards last September, where we presented our draft zoning maps and hamlet map. We subsequently conducted interviews with about 20 town and other stakeholders, and subsequently met with the advisory committee, prepared the survey, and as I mentioned, we're now in the public engagement process phase, and we have an economic trends analysis underway. So to summarize some of the feedback we heard during the interviews, again, we met with about 20 departments and other stakeholders, including the county, transportation agencies, businesses, and the school district. We heard a lot of feedback, such as related to the need for a range of housing options, particularly market rate housing, assisted living. We heard a need for housing for the neurodiverse as well. Many of the comments related to the need for more flexibility in the zoning code to allow for a greater range of uses. We also heard that farmland preservation is very important, as well as economic development, including reuse of retail on Route 58, as well as transportation considerations, just to name a few. Also protection of water resources, of course, we're on the Peconic River and Peconic Bay. So these are some key planning considerations that we will be accounting for in the plan. In order to ensure that it is sustainable, we have to consider a variety of considerations, from economics, environmental, social considerations. In terms of population and demographics, we're collecting existing conditions data, but also looking at trends since 2003 and then into the future. In terms of economics, we were interested in job opportunities as well as market demand for different types of uses in the town. Environmental conditions, we're looking at newer, more recent planning issues such as sea level rise and resiliency. And for transportation, there's some new emerging issues and trends that we're considering there as well that Ray Tobias will talk to you about a little bit more later on. So we know the town has completed an extensive number of planning studies to date, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We're reviewing all of the studies that have been done and trying to build off of them. Those listed here, including the East Main Street Urban Renewal Plan, Wading River Planning and Zoning Report, the Brownfield Opportunity Study that was completed, or the BOA, and more recently, the Transit-Oriented Development Plan and the Pattern Book.
I apologize for interrupting. For the audience that's attending via Zoom, we understand that the audio is not very good and that the screen with the presentation is washed out. The PowerPoint presentation is on our town website. Lorraine, can you tell them where it is on the website?
Sure. If you go to the public meetings page, there's a link to the handouts right there on the public meetings page.
And you can follow along with what Lorianne is saying once you get to that link. That will help you out a great deal. And we apologize for the technical part of this. This is new to us, so we're trying to figure it out as we go along. And our first hiccup was the night.
Okay, so now I'll talk to you a little about town-wide conditions and issues and opportunities that we've identified so far. We've been collecting a lot of data from the U.S. Census Bureau on population, housing, and employment. Census 2020 data was released recently. According to that data, we found that population in the town has increased by approximately 30% since the year 2000, and this is in line with what was projected in the 2003 comprehensive plan. We've also seen a similar increase in employment during that same time period. Census 2020 data is primarily aimed at population, race, and ethnicity, which is what you see here. I won't go through all of the data here, but in general, the town has gotten more diverse over the years with greater percentages of minority populations represented. Okay, as Jeff mentioned, we updated the town's zoning maps that you see around the room. We've used colors to distinguish major zoning districts and black labels to indicate specific districts. These include all the resolutions that have been adopted in the town since the last map was created in 2015. And these are some of the issues and opportunities town-wide that we've begun to identify. We know that farmland preservation and transportation considerations are key issues. We're also taking a close look at housing, options for a range of housing, and we'll also look at short-term rental considerations for that. Economic development is so important. We'll be taking a close look at the reuse of the retail buildings on Route 58, as well as the recent state's legalization of the sale of recreational cannabis, as well as environmental protection issues, particularly sea level rise, resiliency, and renewable energy, which were not considered in the previous plan. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ray Tobias of LK and McLean Associates to talk to you about transportation and infrastructure issues townwide.
Thank you, Lorianne, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. In terms of transportation and infrastructure, we have a list of tasks we're going to be going through on this project. First, we'll be doing an inventory of the existing systems, transportation being highway, rail, bus, and related pedestrian and bicycle transportation as well. Infrastructure being defined as gas, water, electric, sewer. We'll get more into that a little bit later. We'll assess the capacity and the condition of those systems, determine the current demand on them in terms, for example, transportation. What's the demand in terms of vehicles? How many vehicles are existing on roadways? We'll actually then project the future demand, and as mentioned, we're going out 20 years. So this is a challenging thing for us right now with COVID, or I should say post-COVID, because we assume we're going to get past COVID very soon. We're going out 20 years. We know there's going to be some permanent impacts due to COVID. More people will probably work from home. That'll be a permanent thing, permanent portion of some of the impacts that were caused by COVID. And then we're going to develop recommendations to meet the future demand that we forecast in 20 years. These could be capacity enhancements. For example, on a roadway, you might widen the road at an intersection that's a critical intersection that's having problems. And we'll actually look at demand management. For example, on a road, can we get more people to carpool and reduce the number of cars on the roadway? And then we'll establish a policy for each of these. So the existing transportation system, this is basically a summary. We have 23 miles of New York State highways. That does not include the Long Island Expressway, which is a federal roadway. 14 miles of county roads, and the overwhelming majority is town roadways, 178 miles of town roadways. Public transportation, as you know, there's one Long Island Railroad Station in Riverhead, and there's 5 Suffolk Transit bus routes, and this is town-wide, so within the town. The characteristics of travel, and this is from a Suffolk County study of mobility, which was done 3 years ago, pre-COVID. The establishment of that, of the trip length, is that half of the trips are 0 to 10 miles in length. So, for example, a work trip that's relatively close to home, we have about 50% of the trips are that long. In the next 2 categories, which take you from 10 to 20, there's another 25, roughly, percent. And then longer than 20 miles, there's 25% of people. So it's kind of, 50% short trips, 25% a little bit longer, and 25% longer than 20. And the trip mode, or the use of how do people travel, 83% in Suffolk County commute by car alone. So most people like to take their own car, because if they're going to work, they know they can get there probably quicker. They can leave when they need to leave. They're not restricted by transit schedules. About 12% commute with other passengers, for example, our carpool. So that's the overwhelming majority of the trip mode in Suffolk County. So we're going to be looking at traffic growth, and to take a look back to 2003, when the comprehensive plan was last done. We have some major roads, as you know, in the town: Route 25, County Road 58, Sound Avenue. The traffic counts we looked at were 2019, and we compared those to counts in 2004, 2005, and 2003, or about 15 or so years ago. And the growth on each of these roadways is between 1% and about 3.5% per year. DOT, when they did a study called the Long Island, the LITP 2000 study, which was going out 20 years, I believe, also, from 2000 to 2020, predicted a 47% growth in Riverhead traffic. That's going forward from 2000. So that averages out to about 2.3% per year. So it's kind of in the middle of what we've seen from 2003 to 2019. As you know, and as I mentioned, there's one operating one-hour railroad station in the town. The connection from Riverhead west of Ronkonkoma is by transfer to Ronkonkoma, so nobody sits in a train and travels directly west from Ronkonkoma. You have to switch and get an electric train in Ronkonkoma. There's only 3 eastbound arriving and 4 westbound departing trains on weekdays, and 2 eastbound arriving and 2 westbound departing trains on weekends. The trip length to New York City from Riverhead, 2 hours and 14 minutes. This is a list of Suffolk County bus routes within the entire town. The only route that traverses this area of the town is bus route S92, which runs from Orient Point to the East Hampton Railroad Station. So that's a very long route. A lot of ridership. It runs about once every hour. And then Suffolk County Accessible Transportation provides disabled passenger rides, and that's also available within the town. In terms of the infrastructure as we define it, and utilities, these are lists. This is a list of the available infrastructure. That's water, sanitary sewer, electric service, gas service, solid waste disposal, cellular, telephone, and Wi-Fi, cable TV, and internet. So we'll be looking at all of those. In terms of sanitary waste, townwide, most of the town uses cesspools and septic systems. The main sewer district boundaries include the hub area and the downtown Riverhead area. And there's a scavenger waste plant that treats waste from the commercial septic systems and cesspools. The Calverton area has its own sewer district, treating waste from EPCAL. And there are 3 private sewage facilities in the town. Again, this is townwide. I'll talk a little bit about Riverhead, this area of Riverhead in a bit. Existing water conditions. The Riverhead Water District was created a long time ago, in 1916. The district covers the entire town, but not all of the town is on public water. There's 17 active wells, and generally the water quality is excellent, but there are some areas of contamination within the town. We're doing the climate change and renewable energy task in conjunction with AKRF, and I think I switch it over to you here, Gloria.
Yes, so AKRF is looking at climate change and renewable energy options in this town. We know from the International Panel on Climate Change that climate change has real implications both globally and locally. And we know that the state and the town have taken measures to address climate change. In terms of renewable energy, the state recently rolled out an expedited process for permitting large renewable energy projects. We have to consider what implications that process has on the town. We know most renewable energy in the state and the town is in the form of solar energy projects. We're also seeing demand for battery energy storage to support renewable energy development, and the town will need to balance potential benefits and risks associated with those uses. I'll now talk to you about conditions, issues, and opportunities specific to the hamlets that we're focusing on tonight. So again, we're focusing on Aquabog, Northville, Jamesport, South Jamesport, and Laurel. These are our draft boundaries. Essentially, you have the Long Island Sound to the north, Peconic Bay to the south, the town of Southold to the east, and Riverhead Hamlet to the west. So combined, these hamlets represent about 15.7 square miles, with the largest being Northville and the most dense being Aquabog. We've begun to map land uses within the hamlets. Most of these hamlets, as you know, are largely agricultural, followed by residential. We know that they are within the town's agricultural protection zone. In Aquabog, you see a small amount of commercial along Main Road. We've identified some recreational uses and assets, including a marina along Meeting House Creek, a museum, and an art gallery. In Northville, again, primarily agricultural, scattered residential uses. There's large tracts of parks and open space along the sound, including Iron Pier Beach and a county preserve. Also, the United Riverhead Petroleum Storage Facility is the purple parcel along the sound. In Jamesport, again, similar patterns, more of a hamlet center, commercial uses along Main Road reflecting the rural character of the town. So we see restaurants and inns, vineyards, wineries, as well as parks and recreational areas, including Jamesport Beach and numerous nurseries and farmers markets. So we call that agritourism or agritourism. Okay, and then South Jamesport also, actually this one's primarily residential, 1 and 2 family houses, and some parks and recreational uses include Myamak Point Park and Peconic Bay Marina. And Laurel, which is primarily agricultural with residential uses along the waterfront, and again, a small commercial area representing the rural character of the hamlet. So again, we've been collecting a lot of census data on population, housing, and employment. This slide shows conditions in 2000 compared to 2019. We did take a look at the Census 2020 data that was recently released, and actually that shows that the population in all of these hamlets has increased since 2000. So we're still looking into some reasons why we're seeing such differences between the 2019 estimates and Census 2020. It could be that the pandemic may have influenced. We know that seasonal residents were coming out earlier, so that may have affected the counts. Compared to the other hamlets in the town overall, these hamlets have relatively smaller shares of population, households, and employment. Aquabog, of the hamlets represented tonight, has the largest share of populations and households, while Northville has the largest share of employment. So a number of goals were identified for these hamlets in the 2003 comprehensive plan, mainly focused on protection of the rural character of the hamlets. Farmland preservation was emphasized. In Jamesport, there were goals aimed at enhancing the hamlet center, promoting tourist shopping opportunities, and establishing walking and bike trails. So moving forward to today, we see that So far, we know that farmland preservation and protection of rural character continues to be very important. We know Jamesport is receiving a new park on the Sharper's Hill site, funded by the county. And we know that there's some newer issues such as flooding from the Peconic Bay from storm events, for example. Okay, we heard from the Greater Jamesport Civic Association. We received a survey, which was very helpful for identifying residents' feelings towards issues and opportunities in the town. We heard that there was a need or desire for restricted retail, and as well as farmland preservation and open space preservation, as well as environmental and historic preservation. We also heard that protection from flooding was important, and there was a desire to expand the sewer and water districts to protect our water resources. I'm going to turn it back over to Ray Tobias to talk to you about Hamlet-specific transportation considerations.
Thanks again, Maureen. In terms of transportation, as I mentioned, we talked about Long Island Railroad, Suffolk Transit. This is the information we talked about prior. On the bottom, we jotted down some planning issues or some things that we know about, either from speaking with town officials or from our own drives through the town during peak periods. The major roadway facilities, as I mentioned, Route 25 or Main Road, Sound Avenue and Peconic Bay Boulevard, which serves as a southerly bypass of Main Road, and Sound Avenue the same on the north side of the town. Other roadways, Manor Lane and Herrick's Lane, which are north-south roadways that are parallel toward the east end of this area. So some of the planning issues, there's a lack of Long Island Railroad services. You saw the number of trains per day, that's very small, but the ridership is also very small. I think there were about 75 riders per day when the railroad last counted ridership on the train from Riverhead. But there's a lack of transportation options. If you don't take a train or you don't have a bus, and there's only one major bus line that goes through the town, or through this area, I should say, you're kind of relegated to driving. And of course, everyone here knows the seasonal issues that you have, being the summer season, pumpkin picking season, the apple season, followed by the Christmas season, where hordes of tourists come out, clog up the Main Road and Sound Avenue. In conjunction with the summer season, which is also busy, you have high level of traffic basically from April through December out here, and I'm sure you know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We do know that there's some street flooding on Peconic Bay Boulevard near the town beach, and we'll be looking at roadway conditions. Now, we also know that there's congestion at Main Road and County Road 105, Cross River Drive, not only during the peak hours of commuting, but outside the peak hours, to the point where that intersection blocks up significantly. While it's not actually in this area, it's just on the west side, as you know. So we'll be looking at all of those things during the course of the future projection, and we want to hear from you about any problems we haven't identified either today or on the comment forms, which we will go through all of them and sort them and address them. And we know that there's going to be a lot of comments on transportation because we know a lot have already come in on the website. So in terms of sanitary waste, there's no municipal sewers in this area, but there is a private treatment plant in Aquabog at the duck farm. There are private cesspool, septic, and the new IA systems that are now being permitted by the health department. Solid waste, this is Riverhead Sanitation District F, and solid waste is a regional problem on Long Island because one of the major sources of landfilling the ash that's burned from the waste at Brookhaven is going to close probably in about 3 years. So the Brookhaven landfill will no longer be taking trash that's burned elsewhere, most of it in Hempstead, and shipped out to Brookhaven. So it's a regional problem for all of Long Island. And this area is in the Riverhead Water District, and combination of that and private wells in the area. And the availability of water supply for future growth is a big issue because there's not a lot of capacity in the existing water district. And Suffolk County Water does have facilities within the town, so there's something that needs to be worked out because future growth is stymied by a lack of water. This again is the Hamlet map, and there is a private water district at the duck farm over here in Aquabog. In terms of gas, electricity, and internet, I mentioned the existing conditions at the top. The planning issues at the bottom of this slide. Increased access to gas services needed for new and also extended gas mains for development, or even serving a lot of areas within the town that don't have it. We'll be looking at renewable and green energy, and a lot of that is we'll be looking at with AKRF, and that some of the new sources are the wind energy, the solar, battery, and fuel cell operation to get new sources of energy that is renewable and green. And we'll be looking at the need for additional and expanded and improved broadband internet service. I'm sure between internet and cell phone, there are a lot of dead areas in the town. Lorianne, a wrap up, I believe, or Jeff?
All right, thank you, Ray and Lorianne. I think you've seen that a lot of work has already gone into the work so far. And what I'd like to do now is, for the people out in the Zoom community, we're going to take the public comments and questions from the public who's in attendance first. And then when we wrap up with that, then we'll turn it over to the people out in Zoom land. So at this time, I would like to see, raise your hand. Larry, do you want them to have the microphone, or can they be heard from the audience? They need the microphone. So if I could have a volunteer that could take the microphone out to the community, that would be great. And Bob White is coming up.
Hello. First, I want to say thank you so much for all the information.
And if you'd like to share your name and your hamlet, that would be phenomenal. If not, that's fine also.
Those were the next couple of words out of my mouth. So you got it. My name is Nina, and I'm a resident of South Jamesport. I moved out to South Jamesport they moved me out here really in 2001, so I've been an almost lifelong resident. And I really do care about my hometown, so that's why I'm here tonight. Aside from taking in everything that you guys have presented, I have two main questions, which is, how is this comprehensive plan going to take into consideration the needs and the dignity of our unhoused neighbors? The unhoused population on eastern Long Island is disproportionately, if you will, pushed into Riverhead because this is where the resources are. They are people. They are, if anything, the hyper-resident because they live all of their time in our outside spaces. They need help. We have problems with, we have problems with waste. We have problems with labor. They are a population that live here, that care about here, that can take care of here. So, yeah, I really would like to know what you guys are doing to take the unhoused population into consideration and to reach out to them. My other question is, so I had a couple of things on here about higher education. Is the comprehensive plan going to include any kind of collaboration with Cornell? Cornell University is the land-grant institution for the state of New York, and they are legally obligated to provide all residents of New York State with certain services. Considering that we have LILREC, Long Island Horticultural Research Extension, up on Sound Avenue, and we have a CCE office on Griffin, I don't see any reason why it took me being in a master's class, talking directly to a Cornell librarian to find out that there was a CCE office in Riverhead. That's not anything to do with the team in front of us. Nobody is holding Cornell's toes to the fire, and I think that this comprehensive plan, especially with its emphasis on higher education opportunities, you bring through the survey, yeah, I think that considering what are we going to do for our unhoused neighbors and how are we going to collaborate with Cornell to accomplish these goals, you know, I would love to see that reflected in the plan. Thank you.
Kathy McGraw from Northville. A few things I'd like to point out. First of all, I'm a homeowner on Sound Shore Road, not far from the United River Head Terminal. And when I was a child, there was no terminal there. Came in the 50s, and we have lived pretty well with the terminal. We've had our ups and downs. There have been issues, but we've been able to coexist. It is a big industrial area, kind of a sore thumb on the North Fork. We can live with it, we have lived with it, but I am aware that they have purchased 5 residential lots, big lots, to the west of the terminal, adjacent to the terminal. They are surrounded by residential zoning. I would like to make sure it remains residential zoning and that this industrial use does not get expanded. The other thing I'd like to talk about is EPCAL. It is supposed to be an economic generator for the whole town of Riverhead, and in fact, all of Long Island, if you read the RFQ to the Transportation Overlay District. The town's sale of its biggest asset is pretty much at a standstill. I find it really troubling that we have not really delved into what's going to happen with this project. The potential buyers are in dire financial straits. The site is described on the RFQ as shovel-ready for private investment. I've never seen a piece of property less shovel-ready than the land at EPCAL. It's really important to the economic development of Riverhead, and I'd like to have this project addressed and the status of it, because it sure seems like it's at a dead end. And I would also, from an environmental standpoint, want to make sure that the 1,000 acres that are now a part of the sale, it's a sale of about 1,600 acres to CAT, the Calverton Aviation and Technology Company. And I would like to see the 1,000 acres that DEC has said are environmentally sensitive. I would like to see them protected. So I just think that the plan needs to address EPCAL. It's a huge resource for Riverhead and needs to be a part of the comprehensive plan. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say, it's our objective to sort of hear from everyone, and we can talk later in a more one-on-one Q&A with individuals about answers to questions.
John Altiero, Jamesport. On the zoning, the RB80 in Jamesport and in Laurel, is that a receiving area, or will it stay one house for 2 acres? That was a question for somebody to answer. For the town.
I don't have the microphone, so I can't answer.
Sorry.
So the answer is a lot of people related. As part of farmland preservation, we will look at all opportunities for increasing that opportunity.
As part of the farmland preservation program, we'll be looking at that issue and the recent areas. Is there anyone else? Let me go over here. Oh, yeah, let's kind of go this way. If I could.
Hi, my name is Priscilla Devine. I've lived in Jamesport for 3 years. My question really concerns how you're going to reach out to get more community feedback. I spent my career really in consumer marketing and doing a lot of research. And the only way I knew about the survey is I happen to be a member of the Civic Association. And I think you're missing a lot of people out there that are not even aware of this survey, and I'm not sure how you're really reaching out to them. And I think you just need to get as much input from as many people as possible.
Hi, this is Bill Welch of Jamesport, and one of the things that I think should be a primary notification of this, when we saw what the hamlet lines are, we look at Aquabog and Jamesport, and according to this map, places such as the Jamesport Hardware Store, Hobbs, Jamesport, Jamesport Country Store are in Aquabog, as are many people on the west side of Washington Avenue and down through the boulevard. Now, if you look back to the 2003 comprehensive plan map for Jamesport, where it's talking about zoning for rural corridor and other districts, it talks about the rural corridor zone going all the way to Tuttle's Lane as Jamesport. And the south side of this is now coming up as Aquabog on the new map. So I think that's something that really has to be looked at, because most people in the area of 25 and Washington Avenue think of themselves as Jamesport. So, thanks.
Thank you. Continue this.
Phil Barbato, Jamesport. I own a protected farmland on Manor Lane, and I operate an organic farm there. One of the things that I wanted to mention is, you talk about water resources, and you're only mentioning the infrastructure, whether there's wells there and pipelines and so on. I don't hear anything about how much water do we really have in our aquifer, and how much can we take out before we start getting saltwater intrusion or other dangerous movement of contaminated areas to our wells. I don't see anything on that. I think that's critically important, because we don't have an infinite supply of water underneath us, and we need to protect it. And we must not overuse it, otherwise it's going to turn salty. The other thing, I was amazed, nowhere in these pages and nowhere in the presentation was the word EPCAL mentioned. That is the biggest piece of property in our town, and it's one of the largest opportunities for our future. Not only can it be a wonderfully protected parkland, protected habitat that can be used and used to teach our children about the wildlife, and also to make our environment much better. But it also, if we do it right and we terminate this ridiculous contract that we're signed on to now, and go back to something like the 50-lot subdivision we were originally envisioning, opening up the opportunity to our own residents so that people can afford to lease or buy a lot at EPCAL and keep it at home, so to speak. So it's just amazing that you have to think that EPCAL has got to be a vital part of our future, and it's not even mentioned once.
Maybe Jeff will add to what I'm going to say, but it's just in a different planning area for us. So it's not tonight, but it will be in the upcoming presentation at the end of September. We just happen to be in the western, or the eastern part of the town. Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening. Just a couple points. On Peconic Bay Boulevard, it's becoming a place that people recreate all year long, whether they're biking or riding or anything else. So just when you're looking at that area, I know it does become a bypass for a lot of cars, but people from many of the hamlets come over there because it's a long, flat, beautiful stretch. So just some consideration for that. The other situation I've noticed that's been popping up is that there's been an influx of restaurants and other businesses along main road. And one of the things that I've noticed that there has not been adequate parking with some of the restaurants that are popping up there, and I'm happy that they're so popular and so many people are coming to them. But I think in the planning stages, they weren't, nobody knew how much capacity there were. So what's happening now, especially in the evenings, people are parking on the side of the road. There's no sidewalk, so there's only sidewalks on one side of the road, so people are having to walk in the street when cars are going past about 50 miles an hour, especially in the dark. So just to take some of that into consideration. And the one other thing I just wanted to mention, I know you were talking about the areas of transportation, that you have the Long Island Railroad and you have the buses. Another source that many people use out here also is the Hampton Jitney. And I think one of the other things that should be considered when you are talking about EPCAL and transit-oriented development for downtown, there is a rail spur that goes from downtown to EPCAL. And I think, obviously, that's not utilized now, but I think that's a great resource to be able to grow our economy here and to grow our downtown, so.
Thank you. Just coming around this way to the front.
Hi, I'm Joan Sear, and I live in Jamesport, and I'm a member of the Greater Jamesport Civic Association. And first of all, I want to echo Ms. Devine's comments that I don't feel the town of Riverhead has done an adequate job promoting these meetings and informing the public. And I think they could do a whole lot better, and I think they should. And I think you should have a second meeting for this community after you've promoted it adequately with adequate notice. That's my first comment. Next, I have two questions related to slide number 10 of the presentation. The first one is the second bullet under summary of interviews, where it says allow for greater range of uses and flexibility. And the young woman who gave the presentation said such as more flexible zoning codes to allow for more uses. Can you explain to me what more flexible zoning codes and more uses are? What does that mean? Are we talking about somebody being able to put up a 4-unit building on their residential land? What does that mean?
I think in a global way, it means allowing in appropriate locations, greater types of uses. But for tonight, we just want to hear your comments and thoughts. We weren't looking to answer any specific recommendations at this time.
Another question?
She had a follow-up question.
Follow-up question? Sure.
Okay, well then, I'll go on the record saying, I think that zoning is important, and I don't necessarily think that zoning should have flexibility in it. So when a purchaser owns a parcel of land, they are bound to what the zoning codes are. And the allocation of special permits should really require an extenuating circumstance. The next question that I have is, can you clarify what is intended by the bullet also on slide 10 that says we need to amend the TDR program to incentivize developers. Incentivize developers to what? To develop more? Or incentivize developers to preserve land? I'm not sure what that bullet means.
As someone just reminded me also, that the slide that you're looking at is a summary of the interviews that we did and what we heard from the interviewees, not necessarily our recommendations or thoughts at this time.
So, one of our primary things that we're looking at for farmland preservation, we have an existing what's called a TDR program, Transfer Development Rights. And what that program entails is a developer is allowed to build a little bit more on his property, his commercial property, in exchange for preserving additional farmland somewhere else in the town. So that is exactly what it means. There'll be increased development somewhere in exchange for preserving land somewhere else. Unfortunately, the program is not very successful right now for a variety of reasons. One of which is that the ratios do not work. Another is that we're looking for additional receiving areas, for example, maybe along 58 or at Epcal, that we can allow more development there in exchange for preserving more farmland elsewhere in the town. So that's kind of a very broad brush summary of what the TDR program is.
I just have one more comment. On the slide where you talked about what the resources were in Jamesport, you left off that we have a town community center, which unfortunately is the maintenance of which has been neglected by the town. And it could really be an asset for the eastern portion of the township. It could be better utilized. We could have more programs there. It's, it deserves to be included in your plan. Also, we have, in addition to the South Jamesport Beach, we have that's the official name of it. I'm not moving it per your boundary map. There's also a town marina there that was not included in your plan, in your document.
For the people that are in the audience, when you speak, we ask that you take your mask off when you speak into the microphone because it's not being well received by people listening on Zoom. So if you would, that would be very helpful.
You don't have to.
Hi, Dawn Thomas from Jamesport. One of the things I think that's been an emerging business opportunity are the wineries and some of the restaurants, and even our not-for-profits are hosting outdoor special events and private events, and there are a number of different impacts that we are experiencing from those. The economic impact for the area is good, but there are some adverse impacts that are happening because of those, so I'd like to see how those could be looked at and maybe handled. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Mark Hobner from Aquabog. I had some questions back at the first slide or second slide. So there was one word that kind of struck me as not showing up a lot, was the word vision. Do we have a vision statement? And I don't mean something like they have at the top of the hill in Huntington Park Avenue that says a great place to live, work, and play. I'm talking about something with substance, talking about something that was developed by the community. We have an awful lot of reactive plans and a roadmap to somewhere, but I'm not sure where we're going. We talk about quality of life, but those are described in numbers, the amount of traffic or the amount of visitors and the amount of people. I also didn't see, I saw some really wonderful things about great jobs for our kids, but I don't know if this number is absolutely correct, but 70% of our high school is graduating. What kind of jobs are we looking for our children? Are we incorporating green energy and net zero in any of our new building codes? I didn't see a lot of green roofs, solar energy, permeable surfaces, or geothermal for our downtown revitalization. Wasn't satisfied with the answer that I got from UDA on that when I was at that meeting. I know that I just saw briefly the CLCPA, which is the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which is required by law for New York State, and we're only just responding to the law. I don't see us jumping out in front or being progressive or thoughtful or proactive about a lot of things. So the climate smart communities come up once in this presentation. It's an amazing amount of, it's a collection of grants and studies and everything else that's available to us through the New York State DEC. We've also got the Clean Energy Community Program through the NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Act. I didn't see anything about the Peconic Estuary Partnership up there. I didn't see anything from their comprehensive conservation management plan, which is extremely well thought out. I think if we omit that and forget to integrate that into our work, I think it would be a great mistake. Thank you.
I'm Robert Skinner from Jamesport. I live on, right off of Herrick's Lane on Island Circle. I'd like to hybridize the comments made by these two ladies here. The idea of special permits, I think, has to be, in the context of zoning, definitely has to be tightened up. The concept of having outdoor entertainment affect the local residents, the taxpayers, to have a singular entity affect taxpayers a half a mile away is unacceptable. There, and where we are on Island Circle, there are multiple potential quote-unquote agri-tainment venues that can contribute to these issues. And the concept of agri-tainment, as was first proposed, has pretty much gone from agri-tainment to agri-tainment. And we've seen this in a number of different avenues. And that is something that I think going forward has to be looked at, the number, the density, the volume, and also exactly how these operations fit into town code. And I don't really see anything in here that addresses that, so I don't know if that's something that's not applicable here, but I think it's something that definitely needs to go forward. That's one thing. The other thing is, and I don't know how this, the people who have mentioned the fact that EPCAL is not mentioned here, I also don't see the name Soloviv. Soloviv. In other words, Crossroads Ag that bought up a significant amount of farmland and other space along the main road. I haven't seen anything about looking to how that can affect how Riverhead's going to look 20 years from, or the Jamesport, Laurel, South Jamesport, Aquabog corridor is going to look in 20 years. And I'm as equally surprised as the people who say, where's EPCAL, as looking at a very large landowner and how that can affect things going forward. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to someone who we didn't have the question.
Good evening, my name is Elaine McDuffie, and I live in Jamesport. And I'm pretty dismayed that you have started this meeting off with the contorted representation of Jamesport that you presented here, the map. It's almost insulting. But I will say that I live in a house that's almost 150 years old. It is a landmark, a preserved landmark from 1880. It is the Washington Young House. And it has always, always, always been in Jamesport and the surrounding 50 acres that went with it. And I don't know how you can just start this meeting off as if we're going to accept this. The young lady who spoke to the comments that the Civic forwarded neglected that one. And I'd like to know how many comments that you received from our Civic in relation to the boundary that you created for us.
I can't give you a number tonight. We're just taking comments in tonight.
Well, one, to mention it would have been a good thing.
We're very, very well aware of that, Elaine. Very much so. And we've given your comments to the consultants.
Jim Dorenz from Jamesport. I'm also a member of the Civic Association, and a few of our members have mentioned our major concern here, and that is the boundaries for our hamlet and how, according to this map, they bear no relation to what has been the historic boundaries for this hamlet, as well as Aquabog, South Jamesport, and Northville. So even though the speaker said that a lot of these boundaries are being drawn based on census data, it seems to ignore the fact on the ground here that these boundaries are not representative of what the community believes is their boundaries. The other aspect I'd like to mention is question 9, I believe, on your survey regarding vacant properties on Route 58 and what efforts can be made to turn those commercial spaces that are now vacant into occupied businesses. Recently, our Civic Association opposed the extension of a permit for a commercial property to the west of Route 105, excuse me, to the east of Route 105. And our concern is that the town, perhaps even through your efforts, are trying to water down these restrictions and take a toehold into our rural area and somehow expand the commercial available space to the east. Thank you.
Again, we'd like, before people have a second round of questions, we'd like to make sure that everybody gets the first chance. So if you haven't had the opportunity to speak or ask a question, raise your hand. Hearing none?
Nina Keller from South Jamesport here again. I just want to hybridize a couple of things I heard from folks and thinking about what I didn't see in this presentation. Is there any way to incorporate a Department of Consumer Affairs into Riverhead's plan? Riverhead, I know from working with census data and the geospatial data myself, that Riverhead is about 2/3 the size of New York City's entire landmass. New York City, you know, whether or not it was so densely populated or not, would need to control what people consume in that area. A Department of Consumer Affairs would probably benefit everybody when it comes to what zoning is going to be approved where and how is that going to affect residents' lives. A Department of Consumer Affairs is probably the best liaison between, you know, the ZBA, Town Hall, everybody, and the residents. Another thing, just because I love the Civic Association, my mother used to be president, I grew up going to Civic Association meetings, but I will say as a young person living in this area and knowing other young people who aren't able to live in this area because it is so expensive and there is no housing, that, you know, the Civic Association is great, but there is a residential and financial barrier into joining it and being able to provide your opinions. The TDR, I assume it only talks to people who own land or own businesses. I would like to see that the people you talk to going forward be people who want work full-time but cannot live here. If you have to gather extra data to operationalize that, sure, but you need to talk to those people because they have to work here. I would also, you know, put forth that, again, talking to people who are unhoused, talking to people who are maybe not on great terms with the criminal justice system. You know, we maybe not approve of how they live their lives, but a master plan has no place moralizing, and we have to make this a livable place for everyone. If we want vision like what Mark mentioned earlier and putting together a lot of what we have talked about, I think a Department of Consumer Affairs would really help, and figuring out how to get around the residential and financial barriers to, you know, submitting a comment. That's going to help in addition to what everybody in the Civic Association brought up. Because again, I only found out about this last minute. I knew people who wanted to come but did not know, and they live in Stony Brook, and so they can't just come out to Riverhead after they go back after a day's work. So yeah, that's how it feels as a young person.
The microphone is moving its way forward.
Hi, get my mask on. Joan Sear again from Jamesport. I think when we, at least when I looked at the questions related to law enforcement in the survey, they were maybe just skimmed the surface, and kind of building off what the gentleman over here talked about, the issue of enforcement. So it's one thing to be looking out for the bad guys and, you know, dealing with the robberies and unfortunate, you know, car accidents and things that happen. But I really feel that when we're looking at the law enforcement infrastructure, we need to also take into consider enforcement and the resources to do that enforcement. So that includes everything from enforcing noise codes, which have become a huge problem east of 105 because of the agri-tainment, because of the catering halls. The Civic Association gets a lot of complaints. We're getting complaints also, you know, as if we can change it, and we can't, unfortunately. It's a town function. We're getting complaints from residents because in their neighborhoods, people are operating Airbnbs. There's a constant problem with speeding on these roads that the consultant calls bypasses. We wish they weren't bypasses, but they've become unsafe. And as someone else here said, people use those for recreation now. They use them for fitness. They walk, they jog, they bike. So when you're looking at law enforcement, please look at how we can actually enforce the laws and the codes that they have, both laws and codes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, Mike. After Mike, what I'd like to do is then turn it over to the audience in Zoom. We have a lot of people in Zoom that we've raised their hands.
I do have one raised hand, and I have a couple of comments to read out loud.
Okay, so Mike, you're next.
And I'll also just add that there are comment forms you can fill in. The gentleman just left some on his way out, so please write your comments as well.
Mike Foley, Reeves Park, which is not in this hamlet that we're here for, but I did get an email that was inviting, I guess, the civic associations. And because ours is coming in a couple of more meetings, I wanted to get a sense of what was happening, Jeff. So I think one of the problems is that when you start these things off and we deal by hamlet, the big picture sometimes is lost because we're dealing with specifics by hamlet. And that's understandable when people understand what the target is here, what the demographic is here. And of course, EPCAL is going to be a very important topic. And all the other things that we were talking about tonight are not only important to this hamlet, but to other hamlets that you're going to be visiting in the coming week. But a couple of the things that I was interested in, Bob, I know you're behind me someplace. Nice to see you, Bob. Hopefully I'll talk to you or email you over the next couple of weeks. But I know that you're picking up the demographic information. And just a quick question, I wanted to know, are you guys taking inventory of existing vacant retail and industrial space along 58 and Main Street, Tanger malls and everything else? I mean, clearly, the strip malls, not just the guy that's looking to buy EPCAL, but every strip mall is under tremendous stress. And when you look at the Amazon effect and you look at the pandemic effect, I'm afraid that a lot of these stores are ultimately going to be dressing rooms for people to go in, try on the clothes, to get their size, and then order it on Amazon. It's a tremendous problem. And when we're talking about increasing development and building it out, I think one of the core contents of the comprehensive plan should be to be adamant about backfilling existing vacancies before we start clearing other ground in the town of Riverhead. So just a quick question, have you guys taken that kind of inventory yet?
One of the key tasks that we had with Jeff in the town is to do an economic and market study, and it was focusing on Route 58 in downtown Riverhead. When we started, actually 2 years ago, that trend was already in place. We had a hiatus because of the pandemic and other things, but that trend still exists. And it's in Riverhead, it's on Long Island, it's regional, and it is in our scope of work. It's to look at economic market trends and forces and patterns over time.
So we're going to have the overall vacancy rate for the entire town, the footprint of Riverhead, before we get into the decision-making process of the comprehensive plan. Well, that's good to hear. And you've already heard some issues about noise and open space. We presently have Main Street east of 105 as a corridor that's supposed to stay rural. And the residents of the town recently beat back an attempt to encroach on that land by putting a 2-story medical facility in there. And that was good to hear, and just to answer, or to just encourage the girl to my left at the table to say there's nothing we can do. We can do things, we can show up. We can show up, we can voice our complaints, and clearly, those are things that will get the town board, the planning board, and the zoning board's attention. So I would encourage you to just, stay tight on these things. And we will be able to prevail if we stick together on this. But as far as open space is concerned, what are the possibilities of establishing a critical overlay on the historic Sound Avenue corridor and Main Street east of 105 so that not only can we confirm the existing zoning, but we can tighten that up? And I'll give you 2 quick for instances. Again, it's not in this hamlet, so I really didn't want to go into it, but it's on the historic Sound Avenue corridor. And our neighbors in Northville share that corridor exactly the way we are. We're fortunate enough to be south of Sound Avenue on the Long Island Sound. It's a beautiful spot. We want to keep it that way. And you're hearing about noise issues, which as far as I'm concerned, when you have a zoning for farmland or agricultural, once we start getting into accessory to accessory to accessory, the uses involved in the agricultural land are no longer in compliance with the zoning itself. And right now, presently, we have the Baiting Hollow Farm Vineyard that is looking to grow put a 6,000-foot building in that was said at the planning board meeting. They're intending to do wedding receptions and graduations. This is not an agricultural use. This is a money grab to be using a historic corridor for a retail space that belongs on 58. So I think everybody in this room has to understand that when we're just talking about zoning, we have to talk about the uses within the zoning, and we have to be diligent on making sure that us as residents do not allow encroachment like that on any piece of land that is being given a use that it was not intended for. Thank you.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is have Chip open up the Zoom portion of the meeting.
Okay.
Hi, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but I have had a tremendous problem understanding the audio, throughout this from the beginning of this presentation all the way through. And I switched to phone use, et cetera, and I just want to know if this is a shared problem or is this unfortunately connected with my inability to master the technology. I would also comment the presentation, like the screen, when you had the speakers, you had these disembodied voices from the dark. It was almost impossible to see anything on the screen. It's quite an exercise. I don't want to come across as being negative, but can some of these problems be overcome, or is it all on my end?
It's not all on your end.
Thank you.
It's not all on your end, and I anticipate a very good fix for the next meeting. But unfortunately, tonight, this is the best we can do tonight.
And that's kind of sad, because like all the folks who came to this meeting, and I'm thinking about our meeting on the 27th, to encourage people to participate, through Zoom, and most of my people will be participating through Zoom. If it's anything like this, it's a travesty. That's the only thing I can say.
the speakers could come closer to this. The problem is all the audio comes from ceiling speakers and tries to get to the webcam. Same problem we had in the town hall until I had a fix for that. So we're in the same early days of Zoom that we had in town hall. If the speakers came up here, it would be much better for the Zoom people. And you can probably hear me pretty clearly now, I'm guessing.
Now, you were about the first time. It's not the first time I've been able to understand anyone.
Because
tonight.
I'm speaking close
That's
to the
sad.
camera.
These people, I wanted to listen to these
Can the
people.
microphone be brought here during the presentation, or can the speaker come to the microphone?
Everybody who speaks would have to get close to this microphone. Because there's only one microphone for all of Zoom.
Okay. Sid, this is Jeff Murphy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You encountered the first technical glitch that we had with this new evolution of Zoom meetings in the senior center, and we're going to fix it before the next meeting.
You have audio?
I would hope so. Thank you.
Sid, did you have any comments or questions for tonight, though, outside of that?
It was really hard to follow. But I think it's important that some of the speakers I picked up wanted to include the impact of EBCAL, in the comprehensive plan. And I think that's really important. And I think the points that Mike Foley made, or was trying to make, about the character, preserving the character of the historic Sound Avenue, came through very clearly. And I know that folks in Jamesport have expressed concerns about the boundaries on the maps, et cetera, but on the hamlets. Online, the zoning maps that you include on the interactive website, the ones that are the colored maps that show the zoning districts, very hard to see them. Very, very hard to distinguish the different zoning categories. Again, not trying to be negative, just trying to be honest.
Okay, Sid, we'll take a look at that. Okay, Chip, anybody else in the region?
Yep. Thank you.
So I have some comments. Do I need the mic, maybe? First is this on?
Hello? First comment is from Richard Wines. One of the biggest concerns at the end of town is retaining our rural character. This will require a number of efforts to strengthen the zoning code for rural corridor, to require that any new building actually be rural. It should not just be an option for the town board. Stronger efforts to preserve historic resources are necessary. Dealing with traffic is necessary. And finally, strengthening and augmenting the TER program, expanding the APZ to include all of Aquabog, Jamesport, Laurel, and Northville. The second comment is from Lawrence Oxman. Hello, I live in Southampton town. However, I have invested and owned commercial real estate in Riverhead. My business office has been in Riverhead for more than 25 years. I am a longtime member of the Riverhead Business Improvement District. I have been appointed to numerous committees over the years. I am also the president of the board of directors of the Long Island Science Center. As we start this process of the comprehensive plan update, is there a document that critiques the 2003 comprehensive plan in depth and detail? To review, 1, have the goals and objectives been met? Number 2, if the goals and objective has not been met, why not? And number 3, is this goal and objective still valid and pertinent? If so, what can be done differently to meet this goal? An example might be transfer of development rights.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to make a couple of points. First of all, Mark brought up the Beconic Estuary. I am actually the liaison to the Beconic Estuary program, and Janice there has expressed extreme interest in participating in this process, and they actually have a wonderful comprehensive management plan. So I certainly hope that you guys reach out to them. The other thing I wanted to mention is first of all, I want to say everybody brought up so many great points tonight, and it is unfortunate that the people on Zoom aren't hearing this. I actually think this presentation should be repeated for these hamlets, because you have all those people that were on Zoom that were here expecting to participate and they couldn't hear it. And I would even consider doing a summary of some of the comments that were made tonight, because so many important points were brought up. And I think the points that are brought up are not just, and I think to Mike Foley's point, it's town-wide even. The points that were brought up here are also very important to all the hamlets, because even things that were brought up about outside entertainment, in Baiting Hollow, that's something that we have to think about. So I am recommending that this night these issues get resolved, and then this night get done again. Thanks.
We got one more, Bob. A couple more. Hands are coming up now.
I'm Margaret Byrne from Jamesport. Any notice that you give to the residents of Jamesport and Aquabog, especially Jamesport, of the redistricting, the relining of the residences now to Aquabog? Should mention to these people what the potential impact to them is in terms of their insurance, their driver's licenses, other documents that say where you live. And, some of us for 40 years or so have been telling the world we live in Jamesport, and it will make a difference if it's now Aquabog. It will make a difference on where you vote and other services that are available to you as a Jamesport resident that are not going to be available in Aquabog. Or especially for your elder residents, they're not going to understand that being rezoned has these practical, everyday impacts.
I just want to clarify one thing, that the way we've sort of started to organize the planning areas, as we're really calling them, is the beginning of the process. We don't have any intention of rezoning anyone's hamlets or renaming your hamlet or changing zip codes or postal zip codes as part of it. And we're here. Yeah.
It's not the same as the official town map. We've been talking about this for 4 months now, and you come here, and the map is still wrong. So you're giving us lip service. I'm sorry.
Kathy McGraw has her hand up in the back after this young lady. Oh, I didn't recognize you with your mask on. The mask farmer.
Nobody wants to slum it in Aquabog, I guess. Just kidding. I'm just teasing. Eve Kaplan, Northville. I'd like to kind of pick up on actually the comment from Larry Oxman, because I also participated in the 2003 master plan process. I'm sure quite a few people here did. And I think the points he's raising are really interesting and important, because there was a very similar, visioning process, and there's obviously, we all have so many issues. You always wish your town had less traffic. You always wish you had less stress. Fewer vacant stores. More healthcare facilities, more parks. Probably every community wishes for those things. I think in seeing over the years the effect of that master plan, that was a very large rewrite with a lot of rezoning associated with it over the years, because it had been so many years before that there had not been an update and not been a lot of really like a modern plan for Riverhead up until I would say 2003. What was how did that plan help Riverhead, and what kind of fell through the cracks? So I don't necessarily have an answer to that, but I think what I've seen over the years is, I think that one of the biggest things, especially considering the east side of town, is that that plan had a very specific delineation of commercial areas within the hamlets. And as developers came in and were pushing for more and more commercial, as developers do, because that's a high value use, and they were looking for zone changes and overlays and density, I think that that master plan helped to restrict some of that overdevelopment, particularly in downtown Jamesport, which we saw a lot of land preserved relatively recently, over the last 10 years. Some very large parcels that either were bought or development rights were purchased. So a lot of commercial, some strip development that didn't happen as a result of that plan. So those are things that I would like to see tightened up in this plan, very specifically. Like, I think that it, and we have even better data and better tools now to look at all the downtown, all the hamlet commercial areas, whether it's Calverton, Aquag, Jamesport, South Jamesport, every one of these hamlets has a small commercial, well, some small, some larger commercial center to them. Not so much Northville really, but maybe the way it's drawn, but, and really look at what's still vacant, what's up for grabs, what could be and will be developed, how will it be developed, what should be allowed, how much more either commercial or residential should be allowed in those areas. The thing that I've seen that I feel like that master plan didn't do that I would love to see tightened up, particularly along 58, is I don't see that we have any meaningful architectural review in Riverhead. I know that Jeff knows from Southampton that, if you go down even 39, which is similarly overdeveloped like 58 in Southampton, even the gas stations look nice. And the process that led to that. So I don't see why every medical center that goes in has to have signs that are lit at night, which as far as I see does not follow town code for dark skies. I'm seeing a lot of nighttime lit signs, a lot of exterior lighting, a lot of parking lot lighting that's on all night. A lot of flat roof buildings that are, every building that's been put up in the last 18 months, and there have to be at least 3 of them that have been completed, have a different architectural style. There's white ones, there's brown ones, there's round ones, flat ones. I mean, it's really, I'm not an architect, but I can't say that it's particularly appealing, and in 15 or 20 years, it's gonna look even worse.
It sounds like a little folk song, little houses.
All right, Jeff wants the microphone back. So I would like to see something addressed, and we have an architectural review board. I don't know what they do, but no offense to whoever's on it, but I'm pretty sure that there could be something codified. We talked about form-based codes. I'm not sure what's happening with that on 58, where that project is. And I'd like to see just a nicer looking commercial, especially all this new commercial development.
Before I give the microphone back to Catherine McGraw, the consultants are looking at all the goals that were adopted back in 2003. This is the adopted plan right here. It's on the website. If you ever hit insomnia at night, take a look at this. This is the result of 5 years of planning process. This is something that you're probably going to see at the end of our process. It's something to document this thing. So don't think tonight is it. This is just the beginning. It's the first steps in the whole plan review process that involves the community. Some of these goals and policies in here have been completed. Some of them have not completed. We're going to analyze those. Some of the goals in the plan, I find, as a professional, I would not recommend them. For example, there was a goal in the 2003 plan recommending 2- and 3-story buildings in downtown Jamesport. I would not think that 3 stories is definitely, I would not recommend. 2 stories maybe. They recommend rezoning the area north of the Jamesport for 1-acre zoning with TDRs. That's something that I would have to take a really strong look at to see whether or not that was still a valid goal, given 18 years of progress in this area. I don't know if it's still needed, but some of the goals in here are very, very good and completed. Others are still open. Others require us to revisit. So I don't want to besmirch this document, but times have changed, so we need to look at it and update it. So.
Larry Oxman has one final comment related to Eve, or no? You want to go back?
Let's go back to Kathy McGraw first, because she's had her hand up for a while. Bob, if you could grab the microphone. Kathy, if you could reach your hand for Bob.
It's just a quick suggestion for publicity. I went to the town website today and went to the calendar of events, and this event isn't on the calendar of events. It would be really helpful, I think, to get the word out. Just a suggestion. Thanks.
Great idea, Larry.
My name is Janet Bigwell, and I'm from Aquabog, proud resident of Aquabog. He brought up the dark sky. I was on the dark sky advisory committee when we wrote the lighting code, and that really concerns me. I don't feel like many businesses are not compliant with dark sky, and the other issue that bothers me is signage. You drive down Route 58, and between, car dealer, do you need a flag on every single pole in front of the place? Do you need all this stuff? It's like a circus. I think that should be addressed.
Those flags are. That goes back to enforcement. There's no enforcement.
What's that, Joe?
Enforcement.
Hi, Catherine Welsh, Jamesport. I'd like to ask, what is the next step in the process? In other words, we're bringing up these, I'm going to say individual to Jamesport, like that our boundaries aren't what's correct. Is someone going to come to the Jamesport community and talk to us, not more than what's done here now, and understand, we know it, we can tell you exactly what road is wrong and which one it should be. Is that how this is going to happen, or are you going to go back and do what you think should happen and then come back maybe 6 months later, or what is the process now?
In the big picture of the process, in 2 weeks, we'll be having other meetings with other hamlet areas. And I think your suggestion is well taken, if it would be to meet with the group and come up with a boundary that reflects ground conditions. I think we'd be happy to do that.
All right, let's go to Larry Oxman. Back. What is Larry saying now? Oh, I need the microphone. Oh, he needs the microphone.
From Larry Oxman, following up. Thank you, Eve. Hello, is someone from AKRF able to answer my question? Is there a document that specifically addresses goal by goal the objectives of the 2003, and if they've been met, and are these still goals? A lot of work went into that plan. My concern is the baby may be getting thrown out with the bathwater. This is an update, not a new plan. And by update, that doesn't mean there can't be a new and unique goals. Thank you, Jeff. John McAuliffe also commented regarding the website and the calendar. Publicity should include making the link for the Zoom meeting much more visible. So that would go along with the calendar.
Yes, the consultant, Larry, the consultant, I think I mentioned this, is going to go through the different goals for each of the hamlets and update them accordingly as whether or not they've been achieved, not achieved, or something that requires revisiting. Larry, just as I mentioned, there's a goal in the 2003 update that says recommends 2- and 3-story buildings in downtown Jamesport. I would recommend that be one that we will revisit, because I don't think that the community today would still think that that is a good goal. It might, I don't know, but I would recommend that that's one that we revisit. So there are some very good ones that still need revisiting. Our TDR code and program definitely needs to be rewritten. The Does anybody else in the room have any more questions? Or I think we've about exhausted this evening. I think this is a good time to look at the next steps. Obviously, as the first meetings, there are always little glitches that happen. This is the first meeting that we ever had in my career of 40 years that we have had it both virtual and live. And as you can see, we've had some technical glitches, and we're going to try to fix those to the best extent possible before the next meeting.
Yeah, I have a comment. if you'd like.
Oh, another comment, okay.
Might as well.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. Oh, you need a microphone.
This is from Colleen, no last name. It appears on the main road in Aquabog that the previous master plan had a section that was zoned that now appears to be HC in the draft. What is the reason for this change? Why is the farm stand and barrel restaurant not included in the HC? Sorry, previously zoned BC.
That makes sense.
Okay, that's something we're going to have to take a look at. I don't think, so far we have not rezoned anything at this point. That would be way premature. So that's something that we'll go back and take a look at. Let me write this down so I don't forget. As I said, we'll be meeting in this room back on the 27th, the 28th and 29th. And we'll be looking at those hamlets in more detail, just as we look at your hamlet this evening. This is not an exhaustive process that you've heard of seen. This is just the first round, so expect to see us more or less in a very, very short term, beginning of next spring. In the meantime, we're going to post the PowerPoint presentations on our website. We are trying to schedule 4 breakout topic groups that address each of the concerns that you identified this evening in way more detail with people way more knowledge and expertise than I do. The first one will be on farmland, agricultural preservation. The second topic group will be on environmental protection and sustainability. I know that solar farms is a very hot topic over in Calverton. The third topic group will be economic development and Route 58 redevelopment. And the last one will be on housing and human services, including healthcare and affordable housing in the town. Before you leave this evening, there are handouts in the back of the room if you could grab one. If you didn't get one, we'll post them on the website so you can download them. Don't forget to take the community survey. Take a look at the interactive maps on the website. And Bob, is there anything else that we need to finish up or wrap up with?
We're just going to have to, there's a comment box where you can comment forward.
You got to talk to the microphone.
I was just going to add that there is a comment box in the back. Steve is holding it where you can put your comments and suggestions either in the form or whatever you've written on into our box.
Colleen would like me to add that there's a restaurant across from the chocolate factory. These changes reflect as draft changes on the planning site for the master plan. The other thing was regarding the previously zoned BC. The same with further down, why is the chocolate factory RLC as opposed to BC?
All right, Bob and the consultant team are going to be here for as long as you like. You can come and talk with us, take a look at the visuals around us. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know it's only been 2 hours. I'll be happy to talk with you some more. So if I don't see you the rest of tonight, we'll see you in the 27th. Thanks very much.